keep you waiting. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Right, microphone. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the wait. I restarted my computer and then it decided to install some updates and it said 10 more minutes. Anyways, here we are. So, for those of you who haven't spent any time on Twitter today, good for you. I posted a little video, a little song about Mr. David Hayton, and it goes something like this. All right, you ready, everyone? Okay, let me just get this out of the way. Right, it's called I'm Living the Dream. I'm living the dream, I'm living the dream, I'm living the AGP dream. I'm all over the papers and on TV, and all these journalists are calling me she. I'm living the dream, I'm living the dream, I'm living the AGP dream. I'm a very reasonable trans. I don't make unhinged demands. I won't insist that you call me she. But when you do, it feels so good to me. I'm living the dream. I'm living the dream. I'm living the AGP dream. Yes, I'm the most. Yes, I'm the most palatable. Okay, I have to work on that end bit. But basically, how did I do that earlier? I'm living the dream, I'm living the dream, I'm living the AGP dream. I'm the most palatable AGP you've ever seen. Buy my book. That's it. Bye. So, Days of Boyhood says not pervy or creepy enough. I'll work on this. This was obviously very, very mano, but I would dye my hair gray or silver, if I was to do something with it. But the idea was, um, all the stuff that's been going on this weekend and today. After that article came out about Hayton in the Sunday Times, and there's been a lot of discussion on places like X since about what the piece said, the use of she/her pronouns for Hayton, whether someone like Hayton is an ally in these gender wars and all that kind of stuff. And the discussion, well, it was very like it's not the first time. It keeps flaring up. Sorry, I'm getting a bit too excited. Let me just have a look in the chat. Ooh. Turf Club says, well, hello, mister. You're up late. It's not late. It's 9:30 for me. Glam Dolly says, this is a song whose time has come. I think so too. So I just came up with that as I was reading all these things on I want to say Twitter, but is that dead naming now? On X. Feminism says Hayton is a man, simple, he, him. I agree. And Kathy Harris says, I have a box of tea with your name on it. I look forward to receiving it. Somebody said something about Helen's Joyce book. Kurt says it was Helen Joyce's book where I first learned what AGP actually was. Okay, so I'll try and be a bit organized this evening. So first, that article in the Sunday Times. Obviously, Hayton has a book coming out, which is called Transsexual Apostate, A Journey Back to Reality. And, whoever is doing this marketing and PR is doing a good job because he's got a lot of coverage in the Daily Mail. They published excerpts from it. And obviously in the Sunday Times, big interview with Janice Turner. Let me just switch the notifications off. Obviously, if you have a book out, you want to sell it. So fair enough. Kathy Harris, thank you so much for your 10 British pounds and a jumpy creature. Um, so, um, the first thing I noticed were the photographs in the article. The main image is him in the kitchen with, oh, the marigolds. Oh, God. With the marigolds. And he was striking a pose. And, they did his hair, they did his makeup. And that's where I'm like, this is an article about a man who admits that he gets off on that stuff. And then you do it for him. Marigold. So what was his post? Something like, wistful look into the kitchen. And I'm like, really? Like, I don't know who came up with that concept. Feminism says maybe he's into latex. Who knows? But the idea that, in the kitchen with the marigolds as Debbie, right? Not as David, but as Debbie. It felt kind of sexist to me. It's like he's adopted this female persona, even though he says, but I know I'm a man. And then to be in the kitchen with the marigolds, it's like, ugh. Which I found particularly jarring as the story made very clear that when he was going through, his change, that he pretty much left his wife to it in terms of running the household and going to parent school evenings type things. But they have a relationship that for them works for them. The other picture, so I don't want to say too much about that 'cause I don't know them. It's their business. Uh, but the other picture was, I can't get these done. Um, the other picture was him sitting in the living room, and they've got quite a modest sort of home. They had to push everything to the side in the living room to make space for this photographer's screen, this big white screen, like 2 meters high or something. And then they had the lights, obviously, and then they had him on like a stool or something, in a suit with his high heels to, you know, like a proper photo shoot. And I thought, well, how interesting is this picture? Because it really shows that everything had to be pushed aside to center this man, not just in the picture, but in this family's life. So maybe I'm reading too much into this, but those were my thoughts when I saw that. And then, obviously, in the article, Janice Turner uses she/her pronouns, and she then went on to Twitter to say that it was a matter of respect. And this is something that we come across a lot. It's courteous, it's be kind, which obviously be kind has got us into this mess. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be kind, but especially when you're writing a piece about a man who's affected his family so much with what he's done, what are you showing respect for? That's my question. Like, what are you really respecting? Is this giving respect really about giving respect? Is the she her really about validating Debbie? Or is it about validating something about yourself? Hey, look, I'm a nice person. I'm one of the reasonable ones. I don't make a fuss about these things. I'm not difficult, that kind of stuff. And then I remembered that um, Janice Turner also wrote a review about Graham Linnon's book, Tough Crowd. And that was, Kenzie Leonard says, hi, Mr. Menno, love from the USA. Greetings from Turf Island. What was I saying? This is how it goes when I get distracted. What was I saying? Somebody remind me. something about she, her, politeness, validating. Right. The man himself has, oh, review for Glenna's book. Thank you. That review wasn't that much of a review as such. That was just like quite she really stuck the boot in on Glenner. Days of Boyhood, £5. Thank you so much. And you say, I admit it gets me. Okay, I don't know whether you're joking now. I admit it gets me off, so call me he, him. No! This is about Days of Boyhood herself. It's polite to essentially talk dirty with us as long as we can say upfront it's a fetish. Love ya! Well, this is basically it. It's like, he's like, I'm a man. I'm so honest about it. This is a fetish for me. And it's like, okay, well, if you're being so honest about it, then we're going to lie for you. Yay! It just doesn't make sense to me. And then, right, so Janice Turner, when she wrote that piece about, which was meant to be a review of Graham Linehan's book, and she described him as a monomaniac. And I thought that was such a one-dimensional take. So, some people they have different feelings about Glenner. You can't deny the amount of work that he's done, and for a fair few years. So to just kind of brush him aside, or to paint him as just a monomaniac, a maniac. Okay, I don't like what she's doing there, because she's basically saying he's kind of crazy for doing what he does and the way he's going about it. And then, because Glenner doesn't mince his words, and obviously she takes issue with that because she'd rather be respectful and courteous. So that's something else going on. I don't know Janice Turner at all. I've never met her. I know she's been writing about this issue for a long time, so great. But then she comes out with this stuff. It's like she's trying to position herself, as the reasonable one, which means others are unreasonable. So how do you make yourself look reasonable? By calling somebody else a maniac, and by saying that you're respectful, because that means that the others are not respectful. And I'm I've had enough of that. Also, she described the women who appreciate what Graham does and are very grateful for what he's done. She described them as adoring audiences, as if they just sit there, as if they're just passive, which again to me is it's reductive. It's reductive. The women that appreciate what he does, their gratitude runs really deep. And I don't like the way that she's doing that, painting him as a crazy person, basically, and the women who appreciate what he does as also not too bright, basically, just like passive, not very clever people, I guess. And then we get the same thing with over the weekend when people were pushing back against using she, her for this man, that they were then described as extremists and GC ultra. And it's like, well, why? They're just pointing out that he's a man. Teeps says, I don't blame Janice Turner. I don't think we should be too hard on her. She's done a lot of great coverage for us so far. I'm not questioning that. What I'm just seeing is from those two articles is one, the way she describes Graham and the women who support him. And in this article that she goes on about, oh, it's just about respect. It's like you've just written an article that basically shows domestic abuse. So what is there to respect? Especially a man who says he's a man and that he doesn't mind being called. He doesn't even care if you use he, him. So if you use he, him, if he doesn't mind, then why not use it? I don't know about the Times as a publication and the editors and the style guide they have, and therefore the other pressure that there is On her, I don't know. So I just think if if you don't have to lie, then why lie? And this, I guess, is one of the questions. Is it really a lie? Uh, I would say yes, given the situation we're in and how we got here in the first place. Um, One thing that really gets on my nerves is when some people then say, well, you shouldn't tell me what to do. You shouldn't tell me what to say. Otherwise, you're just like the TRAs. And that I take issue with because the TRAs are trying to compel you to lie, to say something that is not true. Someone who's pointing out that that's not true, that's not the same thing. And so I thought back about this whole George Orwell thing, about 1984. In 1984, the Ministry of Truth wants everyone to believe that 2 plus 2 is 5. So someone saying, well, no, 2 plus 2 is 4, that is not doing the same thing as the person who wants you to go along with the lie, because one is false and one is true. So pointing out a fact is not the same as someone's trying to force you to tell a lie. I mean, am I missing something here? Let's have a look at the chats. Watch how you say. You've got turf mail says, say whatever you please, and then I will critique what you've said with my free speech. And Teeps says, if we keep expecting journalists to be purist about pronouns, we'll get zero coverage in the mainstream press. Right, so I don't think it's purism. I don't think it's purism to say a man is a man or 2 plus 2 is 4. That's not purism, that's just stating a fact. So in terms of compelled speech, it's like, it's not the same thing. You bring up a good point about coverage in the press. But then I would say that article by Janice Turner would have been more potent, or even more potent, if it had used he, him pronouns for Debbie Hayton. Because it puts it in perspective more that he is a man, not something in between. But this something in between space is something that he very much wants to hold on to. That's why the book is called Transsexual Apostate. It's not called Male Apostate. Autistic Autumn says hello. Hi. Right? He's selling the idea of transsexual, and he's a true transsexual. The subtitle of his book is Journey Back to Reality. There is no journey back to reality. Because if he journeyed back to reality, it would be a book by David Hayton. He still wants us to buy in to the myth of Debbie. That's the whole point. As long as he's got the myth of Debbie going, there is no return to reality. You've got Turf Mill says, Andrew Doyle says, I don't do this thing except when I do. Something along those lines. It can't be both, you're saying. Bads Tom, thank you so much for your £5. No, I feel quite strongly about this stuff. And I posted about it on Twitter, on X. Let's see if it's still up here. What did I say? And I attached a couple of quotes. And I think those quotes, because this is not just about talking about I mean, the subject we're talking about is the wool having been pulled over our eyes for years through language. Language is the key tool of the manipulation. So then why use it if you have the choice? I understand that not everyone is in a situation where they can, because there was somebody there was somebody who responded on X, who said that they work in a school with a lot of these kids who have all these identity issues, and they can't. They use the preferred pronouns because that's kind of the thing in that work environment, and she doesn't want to lose a job. So I'm not coming at this from, it's not saying you must, you must, you must. I'm trying to understand why people, if they have the freedom of having a choice, then why use the false option if you don't have to? I mean, are you going to use the false option just because you want to say, well, I'm not going to let you compel my speech, so I'll go along with the TRAs? I mean, tell me if I'm missing something here. Right. Okay, so this is one of the quotes by Philip K. Dick. What a wonderful name. He says the basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. If you can control the meaning of words, you can control the people who must use the words. So that's Philip K. Dick. I just wanted to say his surname again. So within that context, if you have the choice, why go along with the manipulation? Why be part of it? And then there is another quote by Simone de Beauvoir, and she says, the oppressor would not be so strong if he did not have accomplices among the oppressed. So now people might respond to this and say to me, are you saying that everybody who uses preferred pronouns is an accomplice for the oppressor? Well, yes. In a sense, it's not to say, oh my God, they're evil, they're horrible, blah, but you're upholding something. I mean, when I read an article about a woman who got her penis out and started masturbating in a little alley next to the recycling bins, that was a real story. And it's called A Woman and Her Penis and She. I don't see how that's any different from using she, her, for Debbie Hayton in the Sunday Times article. I don't see the difference. Now, I spoke to someone yesterday and they said they have a friend, a woman, who, uh, wanted to start living as a man. Leonardo says, hello, good evening. And hi, Susie, thanks for joining. So this is a woman, she's gone on testosterone, she's had a breast removed, and she goes by a man's name. Now, the guy, the friend, is very much about you use pronouns based on sex, but when he's with that friend, he uses he, him for this woman. And he said it's because physically, that's what his brain tells him, it's a man, even though he knows. So I wouldn't be, you know, going up behind him and keep going, she. I mean, I'd like to. I can see in those situations that it's tricky. So I'm not saying there are there are no situations where it is going to be tricky because there are, but then it's about how do you navigate that and why. I'm interested in the why. Why do people choose a certain option, right? Why do they choose 2 + 2 is 5? If they don't have to, and if somebody says actually it really makes my brain hurt, well, I mean it's a that's one reason that they might give. I think that's where you can train yourself. I mean, it is tricky. For me, it's more names if than faces. If if you have someone and you keep using a male name for them, that makes it trickier because in your brain, that's a male name. Anyways, let's have a look at the chat and what you're saying. You've got Turf Mel says, this is such an important topic because the hardliners have to hold the line. We have to make it so that correctly sexing people isn't seen as a terrible, hurtful thing to do. I agree. And especially in those situations where it's tricky, that's where you practice because that's where it's going to make a difference. And I don't even like the fact that that's called hardline. It's not hardline, it's consistent, it's clear. But again, by positioning as hardline, they're saying, oh, well, we're the more moderate ones. We're the friendly ones. We're the nice ones. And that makes me wonder, what is it that you're really trying to validate here? Are you trying to validate the other person or you're trying to validate yourself? I'm nice. I'm friendly. I'm not like them. I'm not crazy. Because if that's the reason, then it's actually quite selfish. It's not about being nice at all. It's about saying, look at me. I'm nice. What else do I have to say? That might be all. What else have I got written down? Oh, yeah. And one thing I really don't like is when people say that this is a pointless debate. I find that really, really condescending. Like, we'd have, you need to focus on other things. I'm like, well, just as you don't want your speech to be compelled, you don't want your speech to be compelled. I don't want to be told what I should and should not focus on. Let's see, just having a look at the chat. I mean, and actually, I've had conversations with people who are new to this where I just refer to men as men and women as women. And then if they're new to this, they might go, oh, you use he. And I just go, yeah. If you just do it in a casual sort of way, you don't have to like badger people about it. I think that's maybe one of the things about the compelling. It's how it's being done. I mean, you don't have to go, if somebody talks about Buck Angel and goes he, you don't have to go she. Although I can totally understand why people do it that way because they're so fed up with it all. Every time it's the same old story. The other thing is when they play that card of, if somebody talks about a man as she, her, or a woman as he, him, and then I, for example, might go, excuse me, that they go, don't compel my speech. I actually think that's a bit of a cop out. I don't think that's the real argument. I think they're basically just saying, I don't want to have to deal with this, or I don't want to be confronted with, being wrong on this or having fallen for something. Um, I think it's a defense mechanism. Bass Tom, £10. Thank you so much. And you're saying gay old men like me hate the queer nonsense. I am totally with you. And the old ideas about us gays that have now become mainstream, and straight men want to identify as lesbians. Frightening new world. Baz, I'm so with you on that. Everything's being turned upside down. Men can be lesbians, women can be gay men. If we point out, see, it's the same thing that happens. If we point out that a man cannot be a lesbian, we're called the bigots. We're called the haters and the right wingers and the Christo-fascists and the neo-Nazis and whatever, okay? So who's really acting like the TRAs when we're saying, hey, man, it's a bloke, it's a he, him. Oh my God, GC Ultra hardliners. Or for women, they use mad femmes. The mad rat femmes are the mad femmes. And then they tell us we're acting like the TRAs. It's like, come on. Baz, I'm with you. And again, the only way to bust these queer myths and these gender lies is through clear language. Like Magdalene Bones said in a video years ago, males can't be lesbians. Peppermint Patty is asking Menno, what do you think about neopronouns like Zimzer? It's stupid. It's just stupid. What else can you say? I mean, when it comes to these younger ones, I do feel sorry for them growing up in this day and age where so much of life, everything's online. You know, they're so used to everything being online. And I was even reading a story today about what's been happening in Sweden. So a new book has just come out, which is kind of like the Swedish version of Time to Think, which is about all this gender stuff that's been going on in Sweden. And it's written by the two women who put together three documentaries in Sweden. The first one was in 2019. It was called The Trends Train. Then there was a part two later that year. And then 2021, there was a part three. So these are investigative journalists, and they've now written a book about it. And in that book, they describe a situation where a kid, like a young person, comes into a gender clinic and wants to get diagnosed as trans and has their phone on the desk. And they're like, can you stop recording, please? And this kid says, no, I want to record this. This is on TikTok. We're live. I want my diagnosis to be live. You know, that's the world they grow up in. Everything's on screen and everything's filtered. And there was a saying once that I heard that online, you compare your own worst with everybody else's best, which for these young kids, that's a lot of pressure. You know, as adults, we can hopefully deal with it, but as kids, right, let's have a look at the chat. People saying they love Magdalene. Al Martin saying, I'm live streaming my diagnosis. This is it. I mean, it's insane. But for them, it's normal. Um, so, just to go back to that defense mechanism, I think some people are a bit like, I guess they don't want to be called out or they don't want to feel like they've given in or they maybe like Aja on Twitter, Aja the Empress, she did a video about it where she said it's probably because they yeah, to a point they've been groomed or maybe they don't want to face that. So instead of going okay, I get what you're saying, it's like don't compel my speech. Yeah, I'm not buying that one. Um, so you know what? I think that's kind of everything I had to say on that. Let me know in the chat if there's something else that you want me to go over, or if you have any other thoughts on this. That's pretty good. Normally I waffle on for hours. Da, 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 da. Gone through that, gone through that. Yeah, if you have the option, if you have the freedom and the choice between 2 plus 2 is 5 and 2 plus 2 is 4, why would you defer to the one that isn't true? That's my question. Um, yeah. Hadley Freeman on Twitter, she said, it doesn't merit this anger. You know, Janice Turner calling a man she, her. It doesn't merit this anger. And I thought, I think it does, because people are fed up and that anger is telling you something. And somebody else said on Twitter, you cannot defeat an ideology dedicated to redefining your language if you allow them to redefine the language that defines you. I'll say that one more time. You cannot defeat an ideology dedicated to redefining your language if you allow them to redefine the language that defines you. So if you can, don't play along with it. And saying, and if somebody says 2 plus 2 is 5, and you're saying, no, it's 4. You're not compelling their speech. You're just pointing out the fact. You can't. I don't like how they're equivocating those two things. They're absolutely, completely different. It's like saying the Earth is flat. No, the Earth is round. Oh my God, you're compelling my speech. I think it's more about how the pointing out of the fact is done. I think because Helen Joyce was on a panel in Ireland. Was it last year at the GenSpec conference where they talked about it, and she was talking about just getting fed up with people. If she was to say she for a man, which she doesn't do anymore, by the way, and that's another thing. People change their minds about this, so give people some space. Is another thing to think about it. Don't shove it down their throat. I guess just point out why it's important to just be factual. Um, I think that's probably a big part of it. In Holland, we have an expression: when you play an instrument like a piano, it's the way you hit the note that determines the music or the sound, right? So I guess it's about how you communicate things. Um, Kate 80 says, no pet troons. Now be careful, Kate 80, because David Hayton said that the first thing that ever triggered his desire to be a girl was the word 80. You might want to rethink your username. Otherwise, you'd be part of feeding the fetish. Okie dokie. So, you've got Turfmail says, are you communicating reality or obfuscating it? Exactly. I mean, if you have the choice, just be clear. Um, right. What else have I been working on? I had an idea for a new kind of thing, a new type of video for YouTube, which I call the Gender Shit News Review, which is about looking back on a month at all the crazy stuff that's gone on in the 1 month. So obviously it's the 5th of February now. I was looking at January and just going through everything that's happened in January. So much. So much. So I thought, okay, I'll have to distill it down somehow, and I have to look at sports and legal stuff and what's happening in terms of language erasure, blah 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 blah. More than 27 different news items, so I can't even put those all in one. But I really like the idea of having the gender shit news review, like the BBC or something. So I will work on that and hopefully have that. Um, well, I should really have that ready this week because we're already in February. It's the 5th. Let me just see what's going on in the chat. Some Hannah says, I've dealt with Dave. I found him personable and easy to talk to. I also met Peter Mendelsohn a lot professionally, ex-politician in the UK, Labour, and found him personable and entertaining. I'm a crap judge of character. Well, that's I get taken in by people's personality very easy. I'm such an idiot. Like, even if they tell me, like, there was a guy, and I was like, oh, wow. And he's like, yeah, I've just come out of prison. I'm like, that's fine. That's fine. I can work with that. You're really nice, you know. Um, and maybe that's another thing that plays into this when they've met someone and they're like, oh, but they're nice, they're friendly. It doesn't mean that they're not nice or friendly people when you meet them, but that doesn't change what they're actually doing or represent. And that's another way that they can draw you in and groom you. Um, right. Mako says, do you think GCs are winning, or do you think the rhetoric has shifted significantly in our favor? Well, I don't know where you are in the world, but in the UK, things are definitely changing. In January, we had two outcomes, the outcomes of two different tribunals, which very much were good for our side because it clarified. Once again, we've got quite a few, about 6 or 8 cases now, maybe not that many, um, where the outcome is one, you cannot discriminate against someone in the workplace on the basis that they acknowledge that sex is real. We know that. You can't discriminate against them on the basis of them expressing that, although, there are different ways of doing it. Um, so some extreme ways, I guess, you might run into trouble if it's considered to be hateful. The other thing is you can't. You need if you're harassed on that basis, then the place that you work for has to protect you. And we know from the judgment of Joe Phoenix versus the Open University that that's what the judges said is why the Open University, not only was she discriminated against and harassed, but the university didn't stop the discrimination and harassment. Um, all that is good, but it's going to take time for people who work in HR and generally in organizations and in businesses. It's going to take time for all that to trickle through and to make an impact on actual policies and the culture within companies and organizations. So it's going to take time, and that's the issue with all of this. Like when I'm preparing now for that gender shit news review, 1 month review, there's so much that goes on, and some go in the right direction, and others go completely in the wrong direction. Um, I think it was boxing somewhere. Was it in Canada or the States where they're now allowing blokes to box against women? So that's completely crazy. And you had a guy win a golf, um, some golf trophy, in the women's category. There was a woman who does park run in the UK, and because she speaks up about this stuff, she was basically told, "You know what? We're going to ban you, and we're going to take you. You came first. We're just going to erase that from the records. So thanks." While allowing a man to compete in the women's category, even if his identity is fake. So um, good stuff, bad stuff. That's why I thought if I do these monthly reviews, but that's a lot of work. 27 items. I mean, that's way too much. I can't do that in one video. Be there forever. I was hoping to do it in the Saturday Night Live, weekend update kind of style. Their videos are only 4 minutes. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm working with someone who's making some music for it because in between the news items or blocks of news items, I wanted to have a little song to liven it up a little bit and make it a bit, uh, ragtimey. And it's very simple. It just goes, a woman is a woman and a man is a man. A woman is a woman and a man is a man. You can dress them up any way that you can, but a woman is a woman and a man is a man. And back to sports, that kind of stuff. Oh, and there was this bloke, right? This guy from America who he's Californian, and in California he got legal recognition as non-binary. So now he wants to have that recognized in the UK. And the UK just went, nope, we're not doing that. We've only got male and female, so sorry, binary. And then he took whatever institution it is. He took legal action, and then he lost, and then he appealed. He appealed at the High Court, and the High Court basically just said, "Fuck off." But because he's non-binary, just to comfort him on the way out, they went, "There, there, there, they, them, there." Anyways. Oh, and then Susie Glucksman is asking Menno, when is part 2 of What I Got Wrong About Trans coming out? She says part 1 was brilliant. You know what? I was actually looking at that 2 days ago. I thought I'd already started, but I couldn't find it. So I have to check on another computer because I don't want to start it all again from scratch because I made a good start. So I don't know. I'm a bit chaotic in the way that I work, and part 1 was already a year ago. But I will. Oh, I've got like 26 videos that I want to make. so much to do. That's so much to do. And I really want to do the trans mum song, um, about the likes of Susie Green. The greatest love of all, but call it the greatest mum of all. I believe your children are transgender. Transition them as early as you can. Change their names, their pronouns, and the way they dress. There's loads to do. Okay, I'm gonna love you and leave you unless you've got anything else to say. Hope you found this an enjoyable chat. And I'll see you again next time. I don't know when, don't know where, because I'm disorganized that way. But thank you so much for joining me this evening. I haven't done a live stream for a while, so thank you for, especially at the last minute. But again, that it shows how chaotic I am. So everybody, keep speaking, keep peeking, and don't call a man a woman. Simple. All right? A woman is a woman and a man is a man. A woman is a woman and a man is a man. A woman is a woman and a man